afternoon.
I'm gonna take this. Giselle? Tell me everything. I need to go to Mexico.
Why would you want to do that?
Because I found my father. I need to hear it from him. I need to understand why he would just do that.
Because he's not a good man.
Maybe he's changed.
Men like that don't change. It only gets worse. Gabrielle, I care for you like a daughter. As long as I'm around, he's never gonna hurt you again.
All right. I appreciate you so much for helping me find my dad.
Me la voy a chingar. Cosío, man.
Here it is.
172. Go on, get your daddy, girl.
I need to talk to you. I'm just trying to understand why you would just go like that.
How did you find me?
Why did you leave us?
You don't need to come back. I know it's hard to understand. Because one day, I looked at your mother and you and realized you both didn't mean anything to me anymore.
John!
What's the matter?
She never went to Antonia's. She went to Mexico.
What?
Just her call. Gabriela went to see her father and never came back.
Did you get an address?
And her father's too.
Pero si se le pela a uno. ¿Qué haces aquí?
Esta puta es de nuestro corral. $20.
Órale, pues.
You want to live? Follow the lights.
"11 years after the events in Burma, Rambo now lives in Bowie, Arizona, managing his family's heritage horse ranch. There, Rambo lives with Maria, the longtime household assistant for the Rambo family, who is considered a family member. On his ranch, Rambo has also created an underground secret tunnel where he manufactures weapons because he cannot completely detach himself from his past on the battlefield.
We are going to win.
Maria has a grandson named Gabriel, who also lives with them. Rambo has come to regard Gabriel as his own son. One day, Gabriel informs Rambo that his friend Giselle has found the address of his father in Mexico. However, Rambo is not pleased to hear this because Gabriel's father had previously abandoned both Gabriel and his mother. Gabriel's father left them when Gabriel was still a child, and his mother passed away due to cancer. Despite this, Gabriel is eager to meet his father to understand why he was abandoned. However, Rambo still forbids Gabriel from meeting his father.
Gabrielle, I care for you like a daughter. As long as I'm around, he's never gonna hurt you again.
All right.
The next day, Gabriel and Maria argue because Gabriel decides to go to Mexico to meet his father. Rambo, overhearing the argument, then meets both of them. Rambo immediately informs Gabriel about their previous agreement. Still, Gabriel insists on going because he only wants to know the answers from his father. Maria, who is well aware of Gabriel's father's bad nature, is naturally angry and forbids Gabriel from going to meet his father. Maria even tells Gabriel that Rambo once kicked his father out of the hospital because he had beaten his mother, who was suffering from cancer. Gabriel is not allowed to meet his father. Later, Gabriel asks for permission to go out and meet his close friend.
I'm gonna go to Antonia's.
Okay.
Sorry.
On the journey, Gabriel continues to think about his father and decides to go to Mexico without Rambo and Maria's knowledge. Upon arriving in Mexico, Gabriel immediately meets Giselle at her home. After a brief conversation, Giselle immediately takes Gabriel to meet his father. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Rambo starts feeling anxious and suspicious because Gabriel has not returned home by evening. That night, Gabriel and Giselle arrive at their destination. Later, Gabriel rushes to meet his father who lives in an apartment. When they meet, without hesitation, Gabriel asks his father why he left them. His father responds that both of them meant nothing to him, which is why he left them.
You don't need to come back.
Devastated by his father's answer, Gabriel decides to return home. However, Giselle prevents him because it is already late at night. Giselle then takes Gabriel to a nightclub to ease his sadness. There, Gabriel is approached by a man named Placo. Placo engages in conversation with Gabriel and secretly slips a sedative into Gabriel's drink. Hugo Martinez, the leader of the Mexican prostitution syndicate, meets with his business associate. They discuss the progress of their prostitution business. In managing his prostitution business, Hugo is assisted by his younger brother, Victor Martinez. At the same time, Maria informs Rambo that Gabriel went to Mexico to meet his father and has not returned yet. Maria received this information from Giselle, who called her. Based on the information provided by Giselle, Rambo rushes to Mexico. Gabriel and several kidnapped girls are to be employed as entertainers. Victor threatens to kill anyone attempting to escape. Upon arriving in Mexico, Rambo immediately meets Gabriel's father and inquires about Gabriel's whereabouts. However, Gabriel's father truly has no idea where Gabriel is. Rambo believes that all these problems are due to Gabriel's father's mistakes. Failing to get information from Gabriel's father, Rambo meets Giselle at her home. Giselle tells Rambo that after Gabriel was kicked out by his father, she took him to the nightclub, and they were separated there. She does not know where Gabriel is at that moment. However, Rambo realizes Giselle's lie when he sees her wearing Gabriel's bracelet. Rambo then threatens to harm Gizel if she does not immediately take him to the nightclub and reveal who kidnapped Gabriel.
You're gonna take me to that club. You're gonna show me who she was with.
Upon arriving at the club, Gizel immediately pointed out Placo, the man with Gabriel. Rambo then instructed Gizel to leave and waited for the right moment to approach Placo. At the same time, a woman also observed Rambo and Placo. When Placo left with his female companion, Rambo followed them from behind, as did the woman who had been watching them. In the parking lot, as Placo was occupied with his female companion, Rambo approached and attacked him.
¿Dónde está? Start telling me where she is or I'll break it off.
Gabriel and Gizel received directions and warnings from their senior. He stated that they had to serve around 40 to 50 men and must not dare to attempt an escape. Upon reaching the destination after learning the target's location, Rambo immediately struck Placo until he was unconscious. Then Rambo moved towards his target location. Shortly after, Hugo and his henchmen also arrived at the scene. Meanwhile, Victor rewarded corrupt police officers, the entertainers, including Gabriel. Outside, Victor's henchmen discovered Rambo's presence and continued to track his movements. They guarded all exit routes until finally directing Rambo to the location where the Martinez brothers awaited him. The woman who followed Rambo was also present, observing from a distance. After searching Rambo, they found a knife, a photo of Gabriel, and Rambo's identification card. They realized that Rambo was trying to take Gabriel out of the place. Consequently, Rambo was brutally beaten.
Hijo de la chingada y a su puta también.
Once the situation was safe, the woman who had been following Rambo came to his aid and took him to her home. At the same time, Victor approached Gabriel, showing Rambo's identification card. Then Victor injected heroin into Gabriel's body and injured Gabriel's cheek, similar to the wound on Rambo's cheek. For several days, Rambo received medical care at the woman's house. During that time, Gabriel was continually injected with heroin and forced to serve many men. After a few days of recovery, Rambo, who had healed, inquired about the identity of the woman who had helped him. The woman's name was Carmen Delgado, an independent journalist. Carmen told Rambo that she had long been investigating the Martinez brothers syndicate because her brother was also a victim of their crimes. Her brother was kidnapped and found dead 3 years ago due to an overdose. Rambo then asked for Carmen's help to locate where Gabriel was. After obtaining information from Carmen, Rambo visited a prostitution venue where Gabriel was located, pretending to be a customer. After successfully entering the place, Rambo took action, beating everyone who stood in his way. Rambo finally found Gabriel in a pitiful state due to an overdose. Then, Rambo hurriedly brought Gabriel back to Arizona. Shortly after Rambo and Gabriela left, the Martinez brothers learned about Rambo's actions from their henchmen. Victor wanted to find and kill Rambo, but Hugo prohibited him, considering it unnecessary. On the way back home, Rambo returned Gabriel's bracelet. Rambo continued to talk to Gabriel to keep him conscious. Rambo said that raising him for 10 years was the best thing in his life, having a family that he never thought he would have. He was very grateful and thanked Gabriel for giving him that hope. After hearing Rambo's heartfelt expression with his remaining strength, Gabriel apologized to Rambo and took his last breath. Upon arriving home, Rambo immediately approached Maria and informed her that Gabriel had passed away.
Gabriel? Gabriel. Gabriel? No. No, don't do it. Sorry.
Maria cried and went straight to Gabriel's body in the car. After burying Gabriel, Rambo asked Maria to leave and stay with her sister. Rambo did not intend to drive her away, but he had plans for revenge against the Martinez brothers. After Maria left, Rambo began to devise his plan. After outlining all his plans, Rambo returned to Mexico to meet Carmen. Rambo told Carmen that he would seek revenge and bring painful death to the Martinez brothers, with Victor being his first target. For this, he asked for Carmen's help in providing Victor's address. After getting the information from Carmen, Rambo took action. On the way back home, Rambo disposed of Victor's head on the road. At the same time, Hugo, who came to Victor's house, found his brother dead in a gruesome condition. Near Victor's body, Rambo left a photo of Gabriel. With Rambo's identification card they had, Hugo immediately gathered his armed henchmen. Afterward, they headed to Arizona. The next day, they arrived at Rambo's ranch and were greeted by the traps Rambo had prepared.
Órale pues.
Rambo deliberately left Hugo alone in the tunnel. Through a communication device belonging to Hugo's henchman, Rambo told Hugo that he would feel his anger and hatred as he ripped out his heart. Then Rambo detonated the tunnel and guided Hugo to follow the lights in the tunnel to safely exit. After Hugo emerged from the tunnel, Rambo immediately shot several arrows into Hugo's body. After that, Rambo approached Hugo carrying his machete. The helpless Hugo looked terrified. Without mercy, Rambo tore open Hugo's chest and ripped out his heart. With the remaining strength he had, the severely injured Rambo then went to the front porch of his house and sat there. While enduring the pain, Rambo said to himself, "I tried to come home, but I never made it. Part of my mind and soul got lost along the way, but my heart remains where I was born and where I fought until the end. The only family I knew, the only home I knew, and everything I cherished are now gone. But I will fight to keep their memories alive forever." A steel-layered prison train was transporting a fugitive to Denzale Prison, a facility for highly dangerous criminals. However, the Expendables team had already set up a trap on the train tracks from the front. They planned to free the fugitive. As the train approached, the Expendables team began their operation. The Expendables successfully infiltrated the train and freed the fugitive named Doc, an old friend of Barney and a former Expendables member. Instead of leaving immediately after being freed, Doc attacked the guards on the train intentionally. Doc did this out of anger towards the authorities at Denzale Prison. He deliberately maximized the speed of the prison train to destroy Denzale Prison. After Doc destroyed Denzale Prison, the Expendables team took Doc to the plane they had recently purchased and continued their journey using the aircraft. During the journey, Doc got acquainted and chatted with the Expendables members. After talking with the Expendables members, Doc approached Barney. Barney informed Doc that they wouldn't be going home right away because the Expendables had a mission to capture an illegal arms dealer named Victor, who would conduct a weapons transaction at a dock in Somalia. Sometime later, the Expendables team arrived in Somalia, where they met Caesar, who was disguised as a fisherman. They then proceeded to the dock using a speedboat. Upon reaching the dock, Barney, Lee, Tool, and Doc sneaked in to locate their target, while Caesar and Gunner observed from a distance. After eliminating several guards, Doc took control of heavy machinery to lift Barney, Lee, and Tool onto the cargo, allowing them to observe from a higher vantage point. Victor arrived shortly after with a helicopter. However, Barney and Doc were surprised to see that Victor was actually their old friend, Stonebanks. Stonebanks, one of the founders of the Expendables, who was previously thought to have been eliminated by Barney due to his evil actions, had survived. Seeing Stonebanks alive, Barney immediately opened fire on him.
Stonebanks!
Barney, Lee, Tool, and Doc tried to evade enemy attacks, continuously being pursued until the vehicle they were using suffered damage. They then switched to a truck driven by the enemy. Meanwhile, Gunner and Teaser began approaching the dock. After Barney's truck was spotted, Teaser and Gunner flew their speedboat towards Barney's truck. Once they regrouped, Barney ordered his team to fight back. However, after successfully eliminating the attacking enemies, Stonebanks appeared and shot Caesar from the helicopter, even dropping a bomb. After the explosion subsided, Barney and his friends tried to provide assistance to Caesar, but their efforts were in vain, and Caesar's condition worsened. Therefore, they had to take Caesar to the hospital for better treatment. After Caesar was hospitalized, Barney left his lucky ring with Caesar and decided to hunt down Stonebanks. Trench also came to the hospital, offering Barney assistance in the fight against Stonebanks.
Not yet.
Barney then met Drummer, the CIA's head of operations assigned to replace Church. Drummer was angry at Barney for letting Stonebanks escape. Drummer gave Barney one more chance to capture Stonebanks. However, if they failed this time, Barney and his team would be imprisoned on charges of embezzlement.
You mind?
As the mission endangered the lives of his team members, Barney gathered his team in a bar and informed them that he wouldn't be assigning them anymore. Barney also suggested that they enjoy the remainder of their lives. Hearing this, they all felt disappointed because, during their work, they were always ready to die for the Expendables.
Live your lives while you can.
Barney then went to Las Vegas to meet his old friend, Bonaparte. Barney asked Bonaparte to find new, younger members for the Expendables. After learning that Stonebanks was still alive, Bonaparte agreed to help Barney find new members. Bonaparte introduced Barney to the first recruit, a man named Thorne with hacking abilities. After that, Bonaparte took Barney to New York and visited a nightclub to meet the second recruit, a skilled fighter named Luna. Next, Bonaparte took Barney to Arizona to meet the next candidate, Galgo. Initially, Barney thought Galgo was a strong and energetic young man, but after Galgo removed his mask, Barney refused to let him join because Galgo was not young anymore. Galgo pleaded for a chance, but Barney still rejected him due to his age.
This shit has got to stop. This is the third time this month. God damn it!
But what am I gonna say? It's a young man's game.
Barney and Bonaparte then visited an airbase in California to meet the next recruit, a young man named Mars, skilled in using weapons. Barney liked him and immediately included him in the team. After that, Barney and Bonaparte went to Mexico to meet the last recruit, a man named John Smiley, who was engaged in a fight. John, a former Marine turned fighter, lost the fight, but Barney was still interested in him and recruited him into the team. After Barney returned to America, Drummer met him again. Drummer provided Barney with Stonebank's criminal record and informed him of Stonebank's plan to conduct a weapons transaction at an art exhibition building. However, in this mission, Drummer requested Barney to capture Stonebanks alive as Stonebanks would be tried in The Hague. Hearing this, Barney disagreed because a criminal like Stonebanks should be eliminated on the spot. But Drummer insisted that Barney must follow his orders. The next day, Barney, with his new team, prepared all the equipment to capture Stonebanks. The old team members approached Barney and stated that he would be killed if he acted with his new, inexperienced team. Barney didn't respond to their remarks. Barney then went with his new team, with Trench as the co-pilot.
Come on, let's go.
During the journey, John forced Barney to reveal the reasons they were assigned to capture Stonebanks. Barney then provided John with Stonebanks' criminal record. From the record, John finally learned that Stonebanks was not only a CIA fugitive, but also one of the founders of the Expendables. The Expendables team landed in Romania and immediately surveilled all of Stonebanks' activities related to the upcoming transaction at the exhibition building. After observing and taking photos in each area of the exhibition building, Thorne outlined his plan to Barney. Thorne would hack into the building's security system while the rest carried out the attack during the transaction. Hearing Thorne's well-thought-out plan, Barney agreed.
You better be right.
Then the Expendables team began to sneak into the exhibition building, disabling several guards. When the team members were in their designated positions according to the plan, Thorne promptly turned off all the lights in the building. The Expendables team then acted, firing at Stonebanks and his henchmen.
Stonebanks is moving, watch it.
Thorne locked all the room doors inside the building to guide Stonebanks into a room he had prepared. In that room, Luna was waiting and promptly incapacitated Stonebanks. Barney and his team then transported Stonebanks by car to the airbase. During the journey, Stonebanks shared with the new Expendables team that he and Barney were the founders of the Expendables. However, he turned away upon realizing that the illegal arms trade was more profitable than engaging in dirty jobs with the Expendables. Shortly after, their car was attacked by Stonebanks' henchmen. Stonebanks' henchmen planned to eliminate Barney and his team, but Stonebanks forbade it. Stonebanks intended to use them to lure Barney. The next day, 3 of Stonebanks' henchmen found Barney by the riverside. However, before they could contact Stonebanks, Barney eliminated them with his pistol. After that, Barney returned to the base to meet Trench. At that moment, Barney received a video message from Stonebanks. In the video, Trench showed that he had kidnapped Barney's team and would kill them if Barney didn't come within 48 hours. Barney and Trench then quickly returned to the headquarters to retrieve their weapons.
That one looks a little slack.
Upon reaching the headquarters, Barney immediately prepared the weapons. At that moment, Galgo arrived at the Expendables base. Galgo kept pleading with Barney to allow him to join and fight alongside him. Seeing Galgo's strong determination, Barney finally allowed Galgo to join the Expendables team and fight with them. When Barney and Galgo were about to take off, they were surprised by the appearance of their old team blocking the runway. Seeing that his old team didn't want to part ways, Barney allowed them to join him.
Come on! We're late for a war!
As they took to the air, Barney was contacted by Drummer, who provided information that Stonebanks was in Asmanistan, a corrupt small country where Stonebanks had reaped profits for years. Drummer also decided to assist Barney directly. Then Drummer went to the base and met with Trench and Yang, who was now working with Trench. They then departed for Asmanistan. The Barney team, already in Asmanistan, continued on foot towards the location where Barney's new team was being held. During the journey, Barney learned that Galgo was, in fact, a former Special Forces soldier and the only one who survived a mission with his previous team. Upon hearing this, Barney felt proud of Galgo and no longer underestimated him.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was listening.
After walking a considerable distance, they finally found the building where Barney's new team was held. There, they easily located Barney's new team and freed them. But through a television, Stonebanks communicated and informed Barney that he had planted C4 bombs in every room of the building, set to explode in 45 seconds. Thorne attempted to disarm all the bombs by hacking them using a device brought by Gunnar. Unfortunately, the device's battery was only 9%. If the device died, all the bombs would explode. After Thorne successfully disarmed all the bombs, Stonebanks immediately sent Asmanistan army troops to eliminate the Expendables team. In the battle, the Expendables team felt overwhelmed because the enemy forces were numerous. When the defeat of the Expendables team seemed imminent, Trench, Drummer, and Yang arrived to help with a helicopter. Their arrival allowed the Expendables team to resist. The Expendables team even managed to defeat half of the enemy forces. However, they began to lose hope of winning after seeing Stonebanks sending more troops. Knowing this, Drummer asked the Expendables team to board the helicopter and leave the battlefield. Seeing that the Asmonistan forces couldn't eliminate the Expendables team, Stonebanks decided to intervene. Stonebanks then approached the building, the battleground, and challenged Barney to a one-on-one fight. Meanwhile, all the Expendables members were already on the roof, ready to leave the battlefield. The device's battery also showed 1%, indicating that the bombs throughout the building would explode soon. Fortunately, in the duel, Barney managed to eliminate Stonebanks with his pistol.
Battery's gone!
Sometime later, the Expendables team returned to America to celebrate their success and Caesar's recovery. Caesar also returned Barney's lucky ring to him. Now, Barney had many members whom he considered family.
Demented father.
Love lost such a cost.
Babu.
Thank you for clicking on this video. This time, Underline Movie will tell the story of the film titled Father and Soldier, released in 2023. Based on a true story, this film depicts the struggle of a father trying to take his son out of the battlefield after they were recruited against their will to fight for France in World War I. How does the full story unfold? Let's find out together. In November 1920, somewhere around Verdun Hill, two French soldiers were digging the ground, and from their excavation, they found human bones. The story flashes back to 1917 in the village of Fouta Toro, Senegal, Africa, where a father named Bakary was herding cattle with Thierno, his son. After herding cattle, Bakary returned home and had a meal with his small family.
¿Yo? ¿Cuándo llama?
Ya no.
The next day, Bakary heard news from the villagers that the French would come to their village to forcibly recruit the youth. making them soldiers the next day. Bakary told his son to hide with the other young men because the French would come to their village. But when they were about to hide, a group of African soldiers led by French soldiers ambushed them. Bakary's son, successfully captured by the French. Knowing this, Bakary's wife asked Bakary to bring back their son safely. That night, Bakary, along with other fathers who lost their children, conducted a joint prayer, pleading to God for the effort to save their children to proceed smoothly. The next day, Bakary peeked at the African soldier training camp led by the French. Unfortunately, Bakary was caught and forced to become a soldier by the French. At night, Bakary sneaked around, trying to meet his son. After meeting his son, Bakary immediately took his son and the young men forced to become soldiers out of the camp. The other young men managed to escape from the camp, but unfortunately, Bakary and Thierno were caught. Bakary and his son were then confined and imprisoned in an underground hole. A few weeks later, Bakary and his son were sent to the French camp to fight alongside the French army. When Bakary planned an escape with his son, a young soldier named Adam noticed them. Bakary asked his son to wait for him there while he sought help. After Bakary left, Adam approached Thierno and accompanied him while waiting for his father. While Bakary was busy looking for someone who could help him, Thierno and Adam were approached by two African soldiers who forcibly demanded their money.
Assalamu alaikum. Ada nani pula? Donta soldo! Olkalo pula. Alko jawata.
Gandu go wa mawalluga patini nebal ko mari donde.
Bakary finally met someone who could help him. At the same time, the injured Thierno met Sergeant Salif. Salif asked what happened to Thierno, and Thierno said that two African soldiers beat him and took his money, but he couldn't remember their faces. Then Thierno was taken to meet his lieutenant at a bar. When meeting the lieutenant, Bakary asked for his name and offered him a strong drink, but as Thierno was a Muslim, he declined the offer. The person who could help Bakary was named Muhammad. Bakary told Muhammad that he and his son were trying to find a way not to go to the front lines. Muhammad could move Bakary and his son to the kitchen area, but in exchange for a substantial amount of money, as Bakary had no money, Muhammad refused to help Bakary. After negotiating with Muhammad, Bakary met his son, who was preparing to go to the front lines. Bakary asked for the money Thierno had brought so they could be moved to the kitchen area, but Thierno said his money had been stolen. After that, the soldiers were sent to the defensive trenches to fight against the Germans, trying to reclaim Verdun Hill, which was already controlled by the Germans. The French side lost in the battle and failed to retake Verdun Hill. Many soldiers died in that battle, including Adam, Thierno's friend. As the day started to darken, Bakary and Thierno decided to go to the battlefield to retrieve Adam's body. After successfully bringing Adam's body to the defensive trench, they covered it with a cloth and prayed for him. The next day, the soldiers returned to the camp because they were soundly defeated by the Germans. Upon arriving at the camp, Thierno was asked to report to the lieutenant due to their bravery on the battlefield. The lieutenant promoted both of them to corporal, replacing the corporals who fell in battle.
À vous le capon. Salif. Allez.
Thierno then met his father and told him that he had been promoted to corporal. Hearing this, Bakary asked his son to use that position to find a way out so they could return to the village. That night, Bakary shared a bit about Thierno's mother with Thierno. After hearing the story, Thierno told his father that he missed his mother and siblings. The next day, Thierno and Salif were assigned to oversee the training of the soldiers, and Thierno's father also participated in the training. While undergoing training, Bakary got injured by a wire, and Thierno was very worried. Thierno tried to help his father, but Salif firmly forbade him. Salif requested and asserted his authority, forcing Thierno to treat his father like his subordinate. The next day, Bakary tried to explore the camp area to find a way out. While exploring the camp area, Bakary met a soldier named Bahram. Bahram knew that Bakary was planning an escape, and as it turned out, Bahram was also planning the same thing. Therefore, he invited Bakary to collaborate. Inside a warehouse, Bahram explained to Bakary that they could escape through a secret route and return to Africa, but they needed a significant amount of money to execute their escape. That night, Thierno met his father and told him that the only way to return to the village was to win the war. Thierno also asserted that he was now a corporal, and his father had to obey his orders and respect his decisions. Unhappy with his son's attitude, Bakary immediately expelled him. Later, Thierno was asked to meet the lieutenant. In the meeting, the lieutenant explained to Thierno that they would return to the front lines. The lieutenant ordered Thierno and Salif to lead the remaining soldiers.
Tiano, j'ai besoin de toi.
D'accord.
À la tienne.
Several days later, the soldiers returned to the defensive trenches to prepare for an attack. The lieutenant, along with Sergeant Salif and Thierno, moved first to destroy the German machine guns, while Bakary and Bahram could only sit in silence, waiting for further orders. Moments later, gunfire was heard. In an attempt to destroy the German machine guns, Sergeant Salif was shot and seriously injured. Salif eventually breathed his last.
Mirza! Salif! Hey, Mirza! Salif!
Upon returning to the camp, the lieutenant summoned Thierno. Lieutenant General learned that Bakary was Thierno's father. The lieutenant explained to Thierno that Thierno and his father had to be separated into their respective units. After that, Thierno met his father and explained that his father would be sent to another regiment, but Bakary would not let his son die in battle. Hearing this, Thierno felt angry with his father and left. The next day, Bakary and Bahram entered another soldier's room to steal their money, but their actions were discovered by the soldiers occupying the room. With no other choice, Bakary and Bahram were forced to eliminate those soldiers and take their money. After eliminating those soldiers, Bakary and Bahram hid in the warehouse. Bahram told Bakary that the money they obtained was sufficient for their escape. They planned to escape when the superiors were in a meeting. The next day, Bakary saw his son casually discussing French women with other soldiers. Bakary even heard that his son and the other soldiers intended to become French citizens after the war. A few days later, during a meeting of the leaders, Bakary approached his son, who was attending the meeting. Bakary forced his son to join the escape. Thierno initially refused, but because Bakary insisted, Thierno finally agreed to follow his father.
On y est, on est. Viens, on. Dépêche-toi. Tu suis, tu es là-bas. Et toi, tu montes. Allez.
On descend là, vite. Allez, on perd pas de temps.
When continuing the escape, Bakary was surprised to find that his son was no longer on the train. Bakary decided to return to fetch his son because he did not want his son to die in the battle. As the day started to darken, the French prepared for a final attack on the Germans. Meanwhile, Bakary continued to traverse the forest to return to the camp. Upon reaching the camp, Bakary was informed by the guarding soldier that other soldiers were in combat. Upon hearing this, Bakary immediately went to the battlefield and tried to find Thierno.
Ah bon?
Bakary was shot while trying to save his son in the battlefield. Before taking his last breath, Bakary asked Thierno to return to the village and live with his mother and siblings. Thierno could only cry at the departure of his father, who had tried to bring him home, but because of his selfishness, his father became a victim in the war. After successfully capturing Verdun Hill and receiving a medal from France, Thierno fell silent and cried, regretting all his actions just for that award medal. He lost a loving father figure. After the war ended, Thierno returned to his village fulfilling his father's wishes. The story returns to two soldiers finding human remains on Verdun Hill. The general asked the soldiers to bury the bones in the graves of the fallen soldiers on the battlefield.
Mettez-les en caisse.
In November 1920, unidentified human remains of soldiers in French uniforms were found on the battlefield of World War I. Afterward, the bones were properly buried in the graves of the fallen soldiers. Hopefully, this film can provide valuable lessons for all of us.